Carl and Brendan here from Brrraains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial.com for short. And it's track by track time as we're taking a look at the sixth studio album by the American rock band AFI. This is Sing the Sorrow, released March 11th, 2003 by DreamWorks and Nitro. Do you remember when DreamWorks had a label? I don't think they do anymore, but there you go.
I don't really remember. To be honest with you, I don't think any band I've ever listened to regularly has ever been signed to them. So maybe they have. I didn't realise.
Yeah, this album was very successful, and today it's since been certified platinum by the RIAA, which of course is American one, as well as platinum in Canada. So Sing the Sorrow, very successful at AFI. At this point, they were hot shit. Quick history lesson. Folks, I grew up on AFI, early stuff. This was the last full AFI album I heard before the most recent one, which I did for the website. So you might wonder, well, why did I not carry on after this? Well, simply put, my music taste had changed, but AFI's style had changed. They were less punk, less gothic. It was more rock, and it was more aimed at a wider audience. And that paid off for them, and amazing stuff. But a lot of this album didn't work for me, didn't like it, didn't enjoy it. So I kind of moved on from them. And it was as simple as that. AFI for you.
Yes. Right. Well, I guess I grew up not listening to AFI at all, ever. I've heard of the band. I didn't think I knew a single song on this album or the album title or any previous stuff by AFI. I did not, when I listened to this, realize that I did know one of them, even though I didn't know it by title name. When it was played, I recognized one of them, but that was it. It was always outside of my wheelhouse, really. So it was interesting to listen to this, but I guess we're going to have probably two slightly different takes on it. Not necessarily different results, but different takes, because I'm listening to this feeling like I've never listened to AFI before. So I'm not comparing this to earlier stuff or anything like that, you know. This is just me listening to this and going, this is what AFI is. What did I think? Whereas I guess you've got those comparisons in your head, you know, so it'd be interesting to see where we land.
Indeed, indeed. And it is a long album, folks. So we are going to dive straight in with Miseria Cantare. I think I'm saying it right at the beginning. Listen, this is a cool intro track. The cinematic ambience, the thumping beat, the shouted vocals, and the transformation in the clean singing. It is a famous AFI anthem, and it does get the blood pumping. However, if you are a wrestling fan, you will have a lot more potentially a different feeling about this track, or at least a connection that's different. Because, of course, this piece of music was CM Punk's music in Ring of Honor. Back in the day in Ring of Honor, this was his theme song. Obviously, I think most people will have heard of CM Punk, the sometimes wrestler, failed UFC fighter, etc. and so on. So yeah, this was his Ring of Honor theme. Yeah, I didn't think you'd know it.
I know CM Punk is, but yeah.
There you go, that'll do.
All right, so I thought at the beginning of this, with that drum beat that goes dun, 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 that I thought it sounded like the Terminator music. That was my first comment. I was like, oh, it's like the Terminator music.
Were you disappointed it wasn't?
Well, I thought it was quite a cool intro, really. I thought it was quite engaging, quite exciting, and I was getting quite excited for what it's going to build up to. I was like, okay, but then it happened and it was shit. You know, I thought, right, I have one major problem. I have more than that, but I have one real standout problem.
I know what it is.
Starts instantly, and is a trend throughout the whole of this album. And that isolated, clean vocal is horrific, whiny bollocks. I fucking hate that voice. And then I wrote in all capitals, hate it, just to make sure not everyone understood. But I do like the gang vocals, and I like the music and the beat. And it was just, I wrote, well, what'd you do there? I don't know what you do there. You know, take out those isolated vocals, and I probably quite enjoy this track, but you can't. So I'm struggling with it. And then the last thing I wrote, remember, I haven't listened to anything else at this point, is like, oh, I hope they don't do that too much across this album. On to the next.
Thing is, I can agree with you to a certain point on this. Davey Havok, the vocalist, has never been what I would consider a great vocalist for me personally. the earlier punkier stuff, it worked. He can, when he's going fast and intense and the guitars and drums are hitting, it's a lot more enjoyable for me. There's a lot more gang stuff in this. This album has a lot cleaner, a lot more isolated stuff, and it's often a problem for me too because his voice is piercing.
Yeah.
The Leaving Song Part 2. It is a tough one to follow that energizing start, so I find this one bland at first. It does come to life in the chorus a bit, and it does have this dark gothic vibe that I like overall, but it suffers from repetition. This isn't a bad track, but it's not a great track either.
I did find this out by the end, by the way, so you don't need to answer it. It turned out to be rhetorical, but I did write, where's part 1? But then I found that out later. I thought the melody in the intro was all right. The vocals aren't too bad until the chorus. The chorus had, again, caused me that same problem I had earlier on. Gang vocals lines, which I think worked really, really well, followed then by that isolated singer line, which I really, really did not enjoy. There's one bit in it which is he does "You Can Take My Heart Away." He doesn't even enunciate the words properly, but fine, that might be the style. You know, all in all, I find it quite a shame. I'm like, oh, it's a shame that I don't like this, because actually, although the whole thing feels a little bit diluted, a bit light, a bit clean, and a bit, you know, like could you have done more there, guys? You know, could you have hit the drum a couple more times? It all just seems very safe and very, you know, it's not terrible. The guitars are quite decent. The song structure is quite engaging. The drums are good. And like I said, I like the gang vocals and I like the verse vocals. I just find the whole thing to just feel a little bit weak, and they're struggling with some of those vocal lines.
Okay then, Bleed Black. There's a bit more peppy alternative rock to this one, with the familiar sheen of AFI's pop goth and punk sound. I find this a fun and lively track with a solid melody-led chorus, and it has a good tone switch in the latter half. Hear this particular part and that particular tone switch here. And it's something AFI have always done. They actually did a lot more in their earlier work, but hear that and tell me the likes of bands like Creeper today weren't heavily influenced by this band. Now, I'm sure Creeper totally would admit to that, and if they have, probably would say they have as well. I'm not suggesting they would deny that at all. AFI would have totally influenced the likes of Creeper, but I really got it there because it's been a long time since I've listened to AFI, this album, whereas Creeper I hear a bit more regularly.
So I like the opening melodies and I like the catchy kind of poppy beat. Obviously, you know, everyone knows what I'm going to say by now already. The main vocal is pretty bad when clean. It improves when he adds a bit of snarl to the vocals, just a little bit of a punk edge to it. I actually don't mind it then. And there's some good harmonizing of vocals in this as well. It's just that I really don't like his voice. I did then unfairly probably write he sounds like a prepubescent teen, but hey, I was annoyed at the time. I do find this song have quite an amateur feel to it. I feel like it's like, and I wrote, it's like the sort of song that a popular local band play on their pub nights out that all 11 of their die-hard friends and family members love and sing along to. I do quite like the switch up and rhythm for the end. You know, it's not a bad song. That's the thing. It's not, there's nothing in it that I'm like, oh, this is the worst song ever. It's not like that. I just find it all quite lazy. Like, I feel like they probably could do more. And then obviously having a bit of a problem with some of the vocals doesn't help. But I just feel like, you know, everything's just like quite weak. You know, like, God, a bit more, guys. You know, even I don't never even listen to these guys, but I know they were a big name. It's like, is this it? So yeah,
you want a bit more from him. Okay, maybe Silver and Cold will give it to you because I think this is a good track. I like the brief bit of rainfall and piano at the start. I like the melody. I really like the chorus. I like the miserable vibe it gives off. I like this track.
I definitely prefer the vocals this subdued as they are in the first verse of the song. I think that actually sounds quite nice. I did also write, I suppose that's quite a bad sign that I like his vocals more the less I can hear them. But, you know, there you go. I like the contrast between the verse and the chorus when it comes to live, just slightly for a few seconds. And that contrast between the two styles is nice. Structurally quite a pleasant track to listen to. There's quite a few little change-ups, little moments of bass, a little bit of melody, a sudden beat. Overall, don't mind this one.
That is praise. Some praise. Dancing Through Sunday, a fun and vigorous pop punk and rock tune, has a nice bit of bite to it. It's energetic. Listen, it doesn't disappoint me. It even has a guitar solo, which is a nice surprise.
Yeah, I thought the riff sounded very, very much like Ace of Spades. I did point that out. But I like the increase in energy. I like the added aggression in the speedier verses. Harmonizing vocals again in the chorus are good. I do like that. It does suffer from occasional bursts of some man who just can't stop singing. But but there's enough going on around it that I actually can overlook it mostly. And I think that pointed out to me that may be the problem in the other songs, because in all the other songs where he was also quite prominent, like that style, I know he's a singer so he's prominent all the time, but that style,
Yeah.
it was also on songs that I felt were weak and didn't really do an awful lot. And it's like, well, maybe if the drums had a bit more and the guitars had a bit more, maybe that vocal would have blended in a bit more. On this one I felt like everything was kind of going a bit harder, and then it didn't hurt me quite as much. It was like, oh, okay, I can kind of live with it,
Do
so
you really want them just to be punkier almost,
yeah, just
basically,
step
where
it up a
everything's
little
still
bit, man.
faster and heavier?
I feel like, oh, you got a nice beat there, but like, does it need to be this slow? Or that guitar riff's okay, but could you not hit it a bit harder? Could you not throw a bit more into your body? That just felt like that. Like it was almost like they were holding back. Like, maybe worried about not, if they put too much into it, maybe that wouldn't get them the mainstream connections they were hoping to. Maybe it was restraining themselves a bit. I'm not saying they were, but that's what it sounds to me like, a band holding back.
Well, considering you don't have much to go on. I mean, if that's the impression you're getting, it is a completely and utterly valid impression, because you aren't a fan, you don't know their music, you've not
I know
followed them
nothing
along.
by them at all. The only thing I know is that I know they're a big name. That's it. I know they're a big name, like, because otherwise I wouldn't know who they were. That's the truth
Yeah.
of it. So I know they're a big name. I've seen their name on tour posters before. I've seen them on festival posters. I've seen people talk about them, or I've heard people talk about them. I know they're a big name, and I didn't find anything in the beginning of this to tell me why any of that would have made them a big name, and that suggests to me that there's more to this band than what I'm hearing here. But on this one in particular, like I said, I think there is more to it. The solo, I did like it. I thought it was a little chaotic and generally found it to be quite fun. But all in all, I thought it was a fun mover of a track that had a bit more of a punk side to it.
Okay, I'm really interested then, because Girls Not Grey is one of the popular tracks from them. It is a super accessible track, and once you hear it, it's easy to see why it would appeal to so many people. But it's also a really good example of how this band was changing musically, step by step, bit by bit, bit by bit. Listen, I think this track's fine, but it has no hook for me. I find it forgettable for the most part, not that interesting. You put it on, I'd be like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, but I ain't going to remember it long afterwards.
Yeah. I started off straight away with God, those vocals again. They seem to have quite a few different tones and ranges over the album so far, and it has to be the one single one I dislike that they use the most. This is a song I said at the beginning that I recognized one of these songs. I realized I knew it. This is a song that I recognized, but I didn't feel like any kind of like, oh yeah, I know this or anything like that. It wasn't in a good way. Re-listening to it now, and I don't recognize it enough that I remember it well. Like, do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But I hear the chorus and I'm like, oh, that rings a bell. I dislike this track immensely. Actually, out of everything I've listened to so far, this to me is the worst of what I've heard so far. It's weak,
Ooh.
it's flat, it has a dull rhythm, and while the chorus is catchy enough, it isn't catchy in a good way. It's just catchy in that it sounds so fucking generic of the genre, so lacking intelligence or spark or creativity or something unique enough to make me go, oh, that's clever. It has none of that. It just feels and sounds like every song by every band in this sort of genre done badly. That's I really dislike this. I felt like, oh, come on, man, really? Could be anybody. It could be any half-assed band. Not talking about superstars. It could be anyone who's just trying to mimic this style of music. So I didn't like it.
Tell us how you really felt. No, awesome, awesome. It's not like you don't explain yourself thoroughly. Let's jump to Death of Seasons then, as I like the experimental aspects of this track, how it transitions into frantic punk rock piece with more melodic chorus and has odd touches of electronica. I guess I was quite pleased by this track because it felt quite fresh at this stage. Quite a few tracks in. There are plenty that haven't grabbed me. This isn't like an amazing track or anything, but it was like, okay, this is at least a bit different, and I'll take that right now.
Yeah, I realized that I don't know if like AFI have a hardcore fan base or anything like that, but I'm probably offending them. So apologies, but I'm going to continue to do so.
Taste is taste, yeah.
You know, the thing is, I write from the heart, man. I write this shit when as I'm listening to it, how I feel at that point. That's the thing. If I went back and edited it, I might go, "Oh, don't say it that way, don't say it that way." But
Right.
there's no point because that's not what you're meant to do, right? This is how I was
Yeah.
feeling while I listened to it. So, I did start this one off saying, "Look, I feel a little bit desperate for a half decent track by now. Like the 7 tracks into the album, just give me I've had a couple of ones that are okay, so like just give me another one now, especially following Girls Not Grey." And this one starts off promising, and has something a bit different. And then I was pissed off by now, so I started writing sarcastic things. I wrote, "Oh, yay for doing something different. Who would have thought that might intrigue a listener?" You know, I wrote, "I like the intro. I do like the intro. I think it's interesting. I think it's got some aggression. It's got some power. I don't think the riffs are particularly great or anything like that. They're there. They're okay. They don't, they're not going to stick in your mind. They just sort of move the song along." And I did write, and look, here's that whiny prick is back. That I said I was angry at the time. Forgive me. But I will suck it up because I like the verse. I don't even mind the unexpected electronic because it's actually showcasing something that I haven't heard in this album yet. So there are now moments in this that it's going, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's intriguing me." And I'm finding myself enjoying that, even if I don't think it's Sunny Boyle's most amazing song. I'm like, "Oh, this is interesting." I did end again with, "This is a fun track. I can live with this. It's amazing what you can do when you put some fucking effort in." Which I know, like, I had to end on a negative, but like, yeah,
that was a journey, man. That was a fucking journey of a track.
It was sitting there listening to it as well.
Well, because we're all at this point of the album, I must say that this is where all familiarity dropped away from me up to a certain track, which I'll get to later. So a lot of this was like, oh, I don't really remember this. And I am not fully aware, even if I ever made it to this point in the album. Maybe I just got so bored of it at the time, I didn't bother. So when I saw The Great Disappointment, which is the next track, and I saw it went over 5 minutes, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Because any AFI track that goes over 5 minutes is panic mode for me. It's a gulp. It's like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. It's going to be repetitive and dragged out and boring. But credit where credit is due. This is a very imaginative effort with some really good guitar riffs and some really clever melodies. It just held my attention. I really ended up enjoying this track.
Yeah, I mean, I did, because I'm such a dick by the time when I start getting frustrated, I did write, "Oh, that should have been in the album title, really," rather than the song title. But hey, go me for humor. It's got a lot of stuff actually that I thought I would like, and actually I was liking at points. So I like the drawn out intro. Got a bit of a post feel, looks a little bit aggression, a bit darker. But the beat that then comes into it is a bit like sort of pulls it back the other way. Got a nice enough melody, subdued vocals are good. It sounds quite raw. And while my friend on vocals is back, there's still a bit of variety on this that hasn't been always there across the whole album. I found though that I ended up having quite a problem with this song in that, like, actually annoyed me even more than some of the other ones, because I liked a lot of the elements on this, but I felt that it really didn't work as a song. I really struggled with it. I didn't think it flowed. I felt it was so disjointed. I was like, I like the guitars, I like the vocal passages. There's even some decent lyrical content in it, but it just felt like loads of ideas chucked in the thing, but like not quite blending. And it ended up making me sort of feel more like a little confused and not quite sure what they were going for there. So I appreciated the fact it was different. I appreciated the added creativity and variety. So I did say that, I will change the title to just a little disappointing rather than The Great Disappointment.
Compliment sandwich. There you go. Well done. You're saying some good things. But it's Paper Airplanes in brackets Makeshift Wings, which is one of the most boring tracks on this album. Absolutely yawnsome, where there's nothing here that stood out for me. I remember having to check how long was left, and a song that is not very long at all.
Yeah, I did write, "Oh, okay, they're done with the creativity now, and they've gone back to this bollocks." Moments again, little moments in the songs. I'm trying to find things I like. I think the chorus is okay. I like the shouted line again. Gives it a bit of force and energy when they do that sort of shout, or that bring the bit gang vocals and that in there. The overall beat, the rhythm, all that in the song, the vocals and everything, it's all pretty standard and pretty weak. It doesn't really shine. There's a slowdown that brings those whiny vocals back right to the forefront, like, and like for him to have his moment. And it's like, don't give him, no, stop him. Tell him no. Tell him he can whisper, or he can do the subdued one, or he can shout, but none of that singing bollocks. Weirdly with this though, like, I can hear why some people probably like it, in the same way that some people like some punk vocals or some metal vocals, and it doesn't always work. I can hear why people like it. It's just, it really doesn't work for me at all. And that obviously makes it a problem for me on tracks when there isn't enough of anything else on offer to cover for them. Which is
Fair enough.
Yeah.
This celluloid dream, it's a solid rock effort with just enough moving parts to enjoy. I think the chorus is pretty good, but this track has a big fucking problem. And either I'm not hearing it elsewhere, but this is the only one that has vocal effects used, as far as I can tell. And why? I could not. It baffled me. Why do that? It ruined the track for me.
I think they should probably put more effects on there. I mean, I was this one. I didn't like this song. I really didn't like this song. On par with the worst ones on the album for me. And it is mostly vocal driven again. You know, but I was so frustrated now. I just wrote, oh my god, those fucking vocals. Is no one else hearing this? Why is this affecting me so much? I was quite enjoying the rhythm for a bit there in the intro, and then bang, here he comes again, and now I can't fucking concentrate. Let me try and get back to the song. Maybe the chorus will save me. Nope, here he is again, prominent in the verse and prominent in the fucking chorus. That was it. I couldn't write anything else. I didn't like that one.
I'm right. Then I am jumping straight to the this next track because I'm fascinated to hear what you think about this, because this is the Leaving song. Now, I had forgotten I'd ever heard this song, and the moment it started playing, it gave me the biggest nostalgic rush I've had in a long time. Couldn't believe. I was like, oh my god, I haven't heard this song in a decade, if not longer than a decade. And it brought me back to an earlier time in my life. It was wow. And so that caused me a problem, because I think the track's quite nice. The heartfelt vocals, the strumming electric guitar, and a memorable chorus. No complaints. But I couldn't afterwards. I was like, wait, have I written that because I genuinely like it now, or because it's just knocked me for six nostalgia-wise, because I didn't expect it. I was at this point, like I said in the album, not remembering a thing. So to hit something that I was so familiar with, it was like, wait, what the fuck's going on here? Like, wow. So I still can't quite decide if it's a nostalgia thing that's making me like it, or if it's a good song. But maybe you can actually answer that, because what do you think?
Walked away, heard them say, poison hearts will never change. Walk away again.
Well, I mean, I started off with right, because you can maybe answer this for me then. Is this from a different album? I couldn't understand like why the Leaving song came after the Leaving song part 2 in terms of album position. I was like, oh, maybe it's like a remaster from like an earlier album or something like that. But I was yeah. I wrote, is this the first part? Why does it come second? Was it from a previous album? These are the only burning questions AFI have provoked from me so far in this album. I just say it's weird. I saw it like kind of there, and obviously you see like if you look on streaming platforms on this album, it's quite difficult to work out what's from the album and what's not. And because it was right down the bottom, I was like, and then Leaving Song Part 2 is like what, the second track on this album. I was like, oh, maybe that's like a bonus track that's coming over from a previous album, but it doesn't matter. It's not that important.
You got me
Overall,
thinking.
it seems weird, doesn't it? Right? Usually like the Leaving Song, and then later on the Leaving Song Part 2.
It might make sense because like that, because of the nostalgia thing, and the fact that, but I'm trying to, like, even as we're talking, I was just clicking away then. I'm like, I can't see it on any. Yeah. Weird.
I thought overall it's nicely played, quite nicely sung with some nice acoustic melodies. It's quite short, it's inoffensive, it's just quite a sweet little song. So
yeah. Okay, now things get confusing because there are many different versions of this out there, and so confusing that you had to message me, go, what the fuck are the last tracks on this?
Yeah.
So pretty much everyone lists them as But Home Is Nowhere, The Spoken Word, and This Time Imperfect. Except that was not what I could find on streaming. And when I say streaming, I don't mean one streaming service. I mean on Apple Music, on Spotify, on YouTube. So after hunting around and doing some digging, it turns out those tracks are completely not available in this country. Instead, the versions that are available in this country have Synthesizer and Now the World. So that is the two we have covered, basically, after much confusion and eventually trying to work it out. I may even not have
I don't think it's
right there.
I don't think it's what I've covered.
What have you covered?
I've covered But Home Is Nowhere, which was 15 minutes long, and at some point in it turned into like a spoken word thing, which I think is the other ones that you said. Which I also couldn't, I couldn't find anything. I ended up finding it on YouTube, but someone had uploaded this 15-minute long song called But Home Is Nowhere, which I listened to, and then I found in the comments that somebody, what you read out first.
Yeah.
I can't remember what you said. But Home Is Nowhere, then something else, then something else.
The spoken word this time and perfect.
Yeah, that somebody had written that in the comments. That's what this was. But I didn't know I was even listening to it. And even in the comments I've written about it, it's like, I don't even know if I'm listening to the right thing. But anyway, we can cover all the bonus tracks this way. That's good.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So the UK edition. Okay. Jesus, this is confusing. Right. God, there are so many different. UK edition should have But Home Is Nowhere, which I then haven't covered. Synthesizer. And then Now the World, which has the spoken word and This Time and Perfect as hidden tracks amongst them, which is why it's 15 minutes. So I have covered that part as well.
Maybe I have as well. It was on some random dude's YouTube called But Home Is Nowhere, but it definitely had the spoken word bit and yeah.
Right. I will do synthesizer. I think I'm saying it right first. Get that one out of the way, and then you'll do But Home Is Nowhere. So this one, it's Meh. I was hoping for something more than just a bog standard AFI track with touches of extra bite. It's just that, basically. I found it disappointing.
Well, I did. The first thing I wrote down was like, this took some fucking hunting down. Why is it so damn long? I didn't know any of this, like, oh, it's 3 parts or anything like that. I was like, what the fuck? Why would they do this? And I actually thought what would happen when I press play was it might be silent for like the first 10 or 11 minutes and then something come in, but it didn't. It came in straight away and it was pretty damn good. Had a nice bassy beat, some well harmonized vocal passages, good strong chorus, lyrics are good. It's even got some kind of light metalcore, like heavier parts in it. And even Mr. Whiny Voice doesn't ruin it for me because it blends so much better with the music and it's surrounded by enough quality that the floors are completely consumed by it. So I quite like this.
Okay, so
whatever it is I'm listening to.
Yeah, because now I'm going to do Now the World, which is over 50 minutes long one, but I'm going to do it all as one. So we'll try and make this make sense, I guess.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, AFI, why'd you do this to us? We're normally so good at finding out which is the correct track, and even if we mess it up, we normally end up with 2 each, and then but this is a mess. So the 15-minute long track. So I did see that and went, what the fuck, and thought exactly what you did. Oh, this is going to be like probably a couple of minutes here, 10 minutes of silence, and then nothing. Well, the first few minutes actually are an animated and fun rock tune with melodic lulls. Then as we approach the 4-minute mark, it ends. But hold on, because as we approach the 5-minute mark, a soft piano melody starts and the quiet voice of a child speaks under it. It's a bit of a waste of time, if I'm honest, but the melody is nice. However, it's not done just yet. As around the 6.5-minute mark, it becomes more cinematic before going back into the piano melody, then back to being more cinematic, which then becomes another song around the 9.5-minute mark, soft, melodic, building in volume and power. It's a big finish with a lot of different elements, and I was actually impressed by the end. So that's me covering everything in that fucking 15 minutes. I was impressed with what they did. I was pleased to not see it be majority of silence. Yeah, that's it.
Honestly, I don't even know what I was listening to now, to be honest with you, because that sounds like everything that I listened to, but the one I listened to said it was called But Home Is Nowhere. And was 15 minutes long. But for all I know, that one that you were listening to at the beginning was the one I was listening to at the beginning, and the YouTube video just had the wrong title or something like that.
I think we may have listened to the same thing, but I think with yours being called But Home Is Nowhere, it didn't have the breakdowns of the secret tracks that I had.
Yeah, maybe. But after to be honest with you, I took very little enjoyment out of this album, so that I kind of like checked out a little bit on this one. I'm not gonna lie. I wrote down that I did too. I wrote, oh man, I'm listening to this on YouTube. It's 15 minutes long. I don't even know if I'm listening to the right track, and I don't like this album. Should I stop? And I was like, oh no, it stopped. So I was just writing down what was happening. I wrote, it stopped. What should I do?
Play
And I was
by play
like,
commentary,
I
man.
went, oh my God, it's back. Huh? But this seems to be a different song, or at least a vastly different phase. We've got some piano melody and spoken word. I have no idea what's being said though. I've Googled, and then I come back a little bit later. I've gone, oh, I've Googled it, and it's actually quite a nice, somber sort of poem. It's well written. Oh, it's changed again. Oh, I've had enough. I'll take this opportunity to check out on a high, and then left it there. So there you go.
No, I think that's totally fine. It was a mess at the end, trying to work out what we were supposed to be listening to based off the track listings online, on Wikipedia, on Google and all of that, and then comparing it to what's available on streaming. And of course, these days as well, if a lot of streaming services don't list like hidden tracks. Sorry, they do list hidden tracks. So it'll be an additional set of tracks rather than what it was originally. Good God. But we made it. That is Sing the Sorrow. So we've got to come up with 3 tracks that you enjoyed the most. So I'll take this one away first. So my 3 are Misera Cantaré, The Beginning. I've chosen Silver and Cold and The Great Disappointment as the 3 that I think probably showcase the strongest AFI on this album.
One crossover, which is Silver and Cold. The other 2 that I went for were Death of Seasons and Dancing Through Sunday.
That makes sense. They're the ones you were the most positive about. But there you go. AFI Sing the Sorrow. Where do you sit with this one? Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It is gratefully appreciated. You can find us over at gbhbl.com, our full website where reviews, news and so much more goes up daily. We're also on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, at gbhbl. Just search for gbhbl and you will find us out there. We also have merchandise on sale. You can access the shop via the website.